Welcome, everyone. We'll start the meeting tonight with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Corliss,
Here.
Halliburton,
Here.
Morales,
Here.
Nash,
Here.
Stead,
Here.
Willetts,
Here.
all present.
Thank you. I just want to acknowledge that we are joined in the council chambers today by members of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters Local 635, who are participating in their National Tax Fraud Day of Action to raise awareness and to educate people about the really very real impacts of tax fraud, which includes the misclassification of employees as independent contractors and can negatively affect employees, their families, increase their own tax liability, deny them benefits, and cost taxpayers critical public services in the form of lost tax revenue. We appreciate the Carpenters Union and their advocacy for working families to ensure that workers can thrive in communities that they live in with livable wages, health benefits, and the ability to retire with dignity. I want to echo my commitment to making sure the city and its contractors are held to a high legal and ethical standard when it comes to how employees are treated, including how their employment is classified, so that we can ensure that the hardworking families of Boise can thrive and enjoy the fruits of their labor. So thank you for coming tonight, and thank you for raising awareness for this important issue. Any other comments before moving on? We're going to have an opportunity to, if you guys, I think our meeting will go about 30, 45 minutes tonight, but we'd love an opportunity to mingle with you and take some photos. So thank you for coming. We need an approval on the minutes, so I'd entertain a motion on that.
Council President, I move approval of the minutes for the work session and regular meetings of April 2nd, 2024.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
Next up, we have special business. It looks like we have the reappointment of John Van Stone to the City of Boise Electrical Code for a four-year term ending April 9th, 2028. I'd entertain a unanimous consent request.
Council President, I ask unanimous consent of the appointment of John Van Stone to the City of Boise Electrical Code Board for a four-year term ending April 8th, 2028.
Without objection? Hearing none? It is so ordered. Is John with us, either in person or online? Clerk? Nope, not looking like. Well, thank you, John, for your service, and thank you for your reappointment.
Mr. President?
Yeah.
Just a quick comment there. John's been on the electrical board as long as I've been on city council, so this is a reappointment for him. Volunteer positions, I always want to make sure that we call out anybody who serves on any of our volunteer boards. It's work, it's real work, makes a really big difference. And I just really appreciated him putting his name in the hat to do this for an additional time around at the city.
Thank you, Councilmember Halliburton. All right, next up, we have the consent agenda.
Council President, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances, oh wait, I'm sorry. I move the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. Clerk, please call the roll. Unless there's any discussion on the consent agenda, anything? Okay, clerk, please call the roll.
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willets,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales,
Yes.
all in favor, motion carries.
All righty. Moving on to ordinances. We don't have any first and third reading, but there are two for second reading, so I'd entertain a unanimous consent request.
Council President, I ask unanimous consent that all ordinances on the second reading calendar be read by the number and title only and filed for the third reading calendar.
Without objection? Hearing none, it's so ordered.
ORD 10-24, an ordinance CAR 22-10 for property located at 2017 West Victory Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change the classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way, from A-1 open land park zone to R-3D/DA multifamily residential with design review and development agreement zone, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date. ORD 11-24, an ordinance CAR 22-14 for property located at 2521 West Victory Road, amending zoning classifications of the city of Boise City to change classification of real property, particularly described in section 1 of this ordinance and adjacent rights of way, from A-1 open lands park zone to R-3/DA residential urban and development agreement zone, setting forth a reasoned statement in support of such zone change and providing an effective date.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to public hearings. First up, heading on the Downtown Valley parking fees, Andrea Cantor from Economic Development Team is going to kick us off. So take it away, Andrea.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, nice to see you. For the record, Andrea Cantor, Economic Development Advisor in the mayor's office. I'm back in front of you today specifically about the valet parking fees, which we previously discussed at a work session last week. This will just be a brief overview of kind of what we touched on, and I will pause on the kind of fee slide so we can just review that one more time. Here we go. So briefly, the valet parking ordinance reflects more detailed application requirements, asking for applicants to demonstrate need for valet to support their business operations. In addition, it's proposed that the updated valet code limits the use of valet parking to hotels with limited to no on-site parking and assigns a fee in exchange for use of the public right-of-way to recoup lost revenue. Here's the noticing and outreach done to date related to the code updates and the new valet, putting us today in the green box. This brings us to the valet parking fee schedule that is proposed. This is in exchange for converting downtown on-street parking spaces from use by the public to valet parking zones for the private use of certain businesses to operate a valet. These fees strive to reasonably reflect the loss of income to the city from the conversion of these parking spaces to valet uses. On the slide, there are two fee structures that are new, each using the meter hood rate as the base rate for the fee calculation. In blue, the annual valet fee is proposed to be $5,475 per space. And then in green, the temporary valet rate is going to be calculated using the meter hood rate multiplied by the number of days requested for a max of 7 days. So in the green box, the 108.50 is like if you wanted a temporary valet for 7 days, that would be the rate. If you wanted it for 1 day, it would be $15.50 or whatever the current meter hood rate is. Okay, good. So the next steps are to have a public hearing on the new valet fees that are being proposed tonight to allow for public comment. In addition, the valet ordinance is ready for a first reading, and the proposed effective date for this would be July 1st. Previously, we had proposed May 1st, but we'll need a little more time for implementation. So it'd be July 1st. And then also just to note, current license holders won't see any changes until applying for the renewed license at the end of this year. And then with that, I just want to share with council that as of today, we did receive 2 public comments from both the Avery Hotel and the Renegade Hotel, the representatives on behalf of them, just stating some of their comments about valet, since they won't be here tonight for the public hearing. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Do you have any, are you at liberty to share what those comments were?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm
just-
happy to.
Just a summary of,
Yeah, I would say one of them was from the Hotel Renegade, which currently has an application to new hotel. They're in general support of this new ordinance And they feel a fee between $2,000, $4,000 a year is a reasonable fee for valet operations. When speaking with them, the kind of larger amount you saw, I think they feel it's reasonable to get what they needed to operate a valet. The second comment we received is from the Avery Hotel, which is slightly different. They make a case for them being kind of more of specific use. It's a boutique historic hotel on Main Street. And so their ask was really just a reduced fee for regular valet to be considered, just based on the amount of investment they put into their hotel to get it up and operating, and that they feel the vibrancy that they'll bring to downtown outweighs the loss of revenue related to parking.
Okay. All right, council. This matters before us, so entertain.
Mr. Mayor, can we ask Andrea some questions before a motion?
Yeah, so let's say I'm gonna go ahead and open the public hearing, and we'll come back to Andrea with questions if we have any public comment. I don't know if anybody signed up to testify. No one signed up to testify, so the public hearing is open. Is anybody in the audience that would like to testify on this? Anybody online? No? Okay, yep, so there you go, Lucy. You can fire away.
Andrea, thanks for the presentation. I just want to ensure that there's clarity on a few things. When you came before the council, there were two different proposals. One, which would be the full freight, which is you basically buy this space for the year. And then the second one was the rate that would be charged if you did have holidays or any of those other times in which it wouldn't be charged. So I just want to make sure that the clarity is it's the full freight. You're buying the space. That's question number one.
Mr. Mayor, council member, that is correct. This reflects 365 days of use.
Okay, and then an additional question, when you go back to the slide about the $15 worth of 1550, I'd like to make sure there's clarity on that.
Mr. Mayor, council member, yes, in the green box or looking at the columns labeled daily, these are just showing how we are kind of basing the calculations off of. So we're using for the annual valet fee, we're essentially using the meter hood rate times 365 days to get a yearly rate, just to kind of show our work there. In the green box, again, this would be based on the current meter hood rate, which as of 2024 is $15.50. This is a rate that can be adjusted. I think the master fee license through the clerk's office does get adjusted. I'm not sure if it's annually, but there are times where it gets increased, I think, by 3%. It can't no more than 5%. So this would just be whatever the current meter hood rate is for that year.
Okay, follow up, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
So if I was a business right now and I wanted to buy that meter for the day, it'd be $15.50.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And Andrea, could you remind us the hood fee or the daily rate is not necessarily the average revenue collected on a particular meter? Like I think in the last presentation you said that could be as high as $35. So we could be charging below what the actual revenue on one of these meters could be, but a premium for what the hood fee is, correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, that is correct. The meters do have a little bit different of a value, but this is kind of what parking services tends to offer for the use of meters currently as published. But yes, the value of a meter could be up to $35 at full occupancy, not including any type of ticket revenue and other things that get put into revenue. So this would be essentially a little bit of a below market rate, but it's trying to balance the benefit that we see valet parking offering.
Any other questions for Andrea? Councilmember Morales?
Mr. Mayor, Andrea, I think I expressed this in our work session, just, the loss of use tag and kind of thinking about how valet spots could also gain use and in a lot of other spots if people aren't self-parking in those spots because they're using valet. But as I've been thinking about it, kind of curious if you've had these conversations, maybe with those that have commented publicly, businesses. But I expect these businesses could recoup these costs by charging a valet parking fee on their stay at their hotel, or perhaps even, and one of the concerns I have is, what if someone rolls up to one of these valet spots to go to some other business, maybe not that hotel's restaurant, but they could charge those people a fee to use their valet service to kind of recoup those costs. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, council member, that is correct. Those who will operate the valet will retain the right to charge a fee at a rate that they seem reasonable based on the services offering. So you're correct. I think it's anticipated that some of these valet operators will charge a certain fee, possibly more than what we're charging for use.
Councilmember Corliss?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, Andrea, thank you so much for bringing this forward and for your work on this. One question, so the rates, we do have a number of days, it's 365. However, the city doesn't charge for all those days. There are holidays and stuff that we currently don't charge for today. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, council member, that is correct.
Was that amount around 222? Was that the number you looked at?
Mr. Mayor, council member, I don't have off the top of
Okay.
my head, but it was probably the federal holidays minus the Sundays in a year. Someone
They-
have to do fast math for me.
Okay, I appreciate that. The reason I bring that up, Mr. Mayor, Andrea, is I do think that this is more than appropriate revenue to be charged. In fact, maybe a little bit over, considering there's many days that we don't charge. And, you know, I'd like to see this fee, if not lowered than what we could have this at, because I do believe there is value that the hotels are bringing to our downtown environment. And I know we discussed that, and it may be a little bit different. I thought we were going to take a look at both rates today, but it looks like we're just going forward with the one higher rate.
My understanding, Councilmember Corliss, that they were looking for direction in our last work session, and so the guidance was to come back with this one. I would just offer my opinion on it is that I'm not just trying to replace revenue here. I'm also trying to capture the lost value that the public has from that space being gone. And I park downtown on weekends and holidays to go out with my family. And these are parking spots that I'm not going to be able to park in anymore. So I would say part of it is revenue. And I don't even know if the number we're doing is the actual revenue that you would collect on a meter. However, it could be higher than that. But I'm also trying to capture the loss of that parking space in this fee. So that's why I think it's appropriate in this matter. But that's just some thoughts. We probably need to have a motion on the floor.
Council President, I move that ORD 12-24 be read. Oh yeah, be read by number and title and filed for second reading.
Second.
Mr. President, so I wanted to just first of all, I'm supporting the motion, obviously I made the motion, but I do, for the reasons that you just stated, I do support the fee that we're seeing in front of us here. I agree that there is some lost value to the public, while major gains for these businesses and other businesses. I think it adds ease to customers that are traveling, probably not only to these hotels, but as Councilmember Morales stated, traveling to other businesses in the area. So I think this is kind of the next modern, obvious step to take, is to have a valet ordinance. So I appreciate, Andrea, your work on this. And I think that this is a reasonable rate to offer that value to our businesses that qualify for this. I also just wanted to clarify my motion. I'm moving to second reading as we continue to move this forward, so that we can get it in front of our businesses sooner than later, and not continue to waste time and get this on the books if this is something that the council supports.
Mr. Mayor. Thank you, and thank you for the motion. I spent a lot of time thinking about this after we had the presentation last week and what is the right dollar amount. And first, I want to thank you, Andrea, for all the work that went into this. I think that sometimes we don't realize how much work it actually takes to get something like this mapped out and put in place. And I was trying to figure out like what is the right amount, what is the days, and I tried to actually change my mind a little bit in what I was thinking about. Instead of thinking about, the value of that meter, thinking about the value of that public space. It's a parking spot. It's a piece of real estate that basically gets taken off the books for every other business in town, for every individual in town that's coming downtown to a farmer's market, to an event, to the Twilight Criterium. And those are fewer spaces that are now available to the general public, and an absolute tremendous value to this business who now has pieces of real estate right in front of their business used specifically for them 365 days of the year. So not just on the days that we're actually able to charge, but even on those other days where we don't charge, it still has value. It still brings value to that business. And it still prevents somebody else from being able to park on there during a potentially really busy event, New Year's Eve, again, Twilight Criterium, other big events where every single downtown parking spot is taken up. And so I do agree that going with the 365 days does kind of capture an actual value. The meter mark, I think, is something that we tried to actually make it so that it wasn't an arbitrary amount that we were saying. But so I look at it less as the meter mark. I think that's a great way of calculating some of that value, but the value is in the piece of real estate itself that has value 365 days of the year. I do recognize and I do appreciate the folks who called in from the different businesses. They're small businesses. They're trying to make things work and every penny counts. My hope is that this really is an asset to them. And I guess I would remind us that the businesses don't have to do this either. So if the businesses don't see this as a good deal and they see it costing too much, that can change the amount of spots that they're looking at, can change their desire to actually have it or not. And currently they don't have it at all. So it's not doing any harm to the business. It's offering them one additional tool, and it's their choice to buy in. We're not forcing anybody into actually purchasing these spaces as well. And so that's where I landed, and the reason why I'd be supporting the first reading today and then the moving to the second reading calendar.
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, I appreciate your input and the value that you speak of looking at this as not just a parking or a loss for the city, that this is a space and a space for all of the city and not just for those businesses. Because I think you're absolutely right. It is a space that everyone has access to today that would be dedicated just to that business that I didn't think about before. And it is a value to them that they don't have to take. So, and looking at that through your purview, I would agree with you, and I will be supporting this motion. And thank you for your input.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Willetts.
just a couple of comments. Thanks to all the council members who've spoken so far. I vacillated back and forth when we discussed this a few weeks ago because there's the letter of the law, which is if you have the space on the holidays, it's free. And then I think there's the spirit of the law, and the spirit of the law is you're buying the space, and you're buying the space as an amenity to your business. And as someone who drives to downtown, parking's at a premium. So I think this fee is fair. I look forward to seeing it be implemented, and then let's see how it works over time. But I think we have to view this as buying a space because that space has value, and a lot of folks drive into downtown and they all need parking.
Councilmember Morales.
Yeah, I'll go ahead. Last word. I want to thank the businesses that have provided some input in this process, and excited that they're going after these kinds of tools. When I think about, I walk around downtown a lot, and we have such a lot of amenities, great businesses, great walkability. But what's not walkable would be a bunch of hotels with drive aisles, people coming in to valet spots or whatnot. So I really like that we're trying to preserve some of these older spaces in downtown without having to build new garages. And I really hope that we'll see the data, and maybe we'll learn some things over the next couple of years in terms of how this maybe helps off-park and outside of downtown. So we'll be able to know where these valets are parking vehicles, what their contracts look like. And hopefully that means that the parking spots that are more prime, where you want to be parking when you're driving into downtown to do business or for a quick stay, are not being occupied by cars all day long. So if I'm a guest staying in a hotel downtown, I'm probably not driving my car around very much. I chose to be downtown for a reason. So I'm hoping that we'll see that, and maybe we'll learn some things and revisit this in the years to come.
All right. Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willetts,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton,
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries. ORD 12-24, an ordinance amending Boise City Code Title III, Chapter 11, entitled Downtown Valley Parking, to clarify legal authority and correct grammatical errors and typos, adding new definitions and amending some existing definitions, clarifying the types of valley permits, their limitations, exemptions, and abandonment, repealing sections 7 and 16 and renumbering the subsequent sections accordingly, updating permit application requirements and permit fees, updating and clarifying valley parking permit standards, clarifying temporary suspension of valley parking operations, updating suspension or revocation of valley permits and reasons thereof, updating the penalty provisions, approving a summary of the ordinance, and providing an effective date of July 1, 2024.
All right. Thank you, clerk. And thank you, Andrea. And thank you, council. All right. Our final item for the night is SUB 23-00061 McPherson Park subdivision. Sabrina, take it away.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. Before you is a request for the approval of the preliminary plat of McPherson Park subdivision, a residential subdivision comprised of 19 buildable and 6 common lots located at 7777 West Fairview Avenue. As a reminder, this application was submitted and reviewed under the Legacy Zoning Code. The subject property is located at the southwestern corner of the intersection of Fairview Avenue and Owens Avenue and contains an existing religious institution. There is an existing bus stop located at the northeastern corner of the property with VRT routes 7A and 7B running along Fairview Avenue adjacent to the site. The applicant proposes to maintain the existing religious institution on the northern portion of the site with no modifications to the existing structure, parking area, or landscaping. The applicant proposes to divide the property to create an 18-unit townhome subdivision in the southern portion of the site. Vehicular access to the residential development would be provided by a private street that would enter the site from Owens Avenue. 14 of the proposed townhomes will be oriented to face the private drive, with rear yards facing the existing church to the north and the neighboring single-family homes to the south. The 4 remaining units will face Owens Avenue with rear-loaded garages that will be accessed from a common driveway. There's existing attached sidewalk along the northern portion of the site's frontages on Fairview Avenue and Owens Avenue, which the applicant proposes to maintain. As condition, the applicant will install a new detached sidewalk with street trees along the portion of the site's frontage on Owens Avenue, which does not already have attached sidewalk. Additionally, the applicant proposes to provide attached sidewalks along both sides of the private street, as well as a pedestrian walkway through the southern portion of the site with a connection to the adjacent property to the west, which was recently developed with multifamily residential. Together, the 2 developments will provide a continuous pedestrian connection between Owens Avenue and Etheridge Lane. Plans submitted by the applicant indicate that all existing trees on the site will be retained and 56 new trees will be planted throughout the development. As detailed in your packets, public opposition has been received regarding various aspects of the proposal, including density, aesthetics, and parking and traffic impacts. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission found the proposal to be in compliance with the requirements of code. The associated planned unit development application was not appealed and is therefore not before you this evening. In conclusion, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommends approval, and I'll stand for any questions.
Council, any questions for Sabrina before we get into the public hearing? All righty. We'll kick off the public hearing and we'll welcome Mr. Semple.
Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, Ben Semple with Rodney Evans and Partners, 1450 West Bannock Street, Boise, Idaho, 83702. First, I want to thank Sabrina, not only for the process getting to here, but through planning and zoning. And I know this project has been kind of in the city's purview for quite a while. So nice to see it getting to the finish line here. Yeah, we're in agreement with the conditions of approval in the staff report. We agree with the decision by planning and zoning. And there was, one of the conditions was to work with solid waste. I did provide an updated exhibit. I know it was kind of late. I think it was maybe yesterday even, to Sabrina, but we were able to work on a rotation of that trash enclosure to get solid waste and Republic Services comfortable with access for that. Yeah, so anything else, I'd stand for any additional questions.
Yeah, Ben, my question is on the north side of the property, which is for council that's to your left here. What's going on there? It seems like you have a pathway on the south side. Do you have landscaping on the north side? What kind of barrier is going to be between the parking lot at the existing church and the development?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, so the north side of those townhomes will all have 15-foot rear yards that
Okay.
are private and fenced, and then we will be putting additional trees in there. There's a maintenance area that's associated with the church that's just north of that, kind of has an accessory building that's remaining unchanged. Then there's some very mature trees between that and the church parking lot. We are rebuilding the approach into the church parking lot per ACHD. It doesn't currently meet ADA standards, so that's being upgraded to complete that.
And I think this has already been said, but we do have pathways on the south side and sidewalks on the east side there. Is that correct?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, that's correct. Detached sidewalk along Owens, a dedicated pedestrian pathway along the southern edge that comes along the west and ties into a connection to pedestrian facilities to the west. And then the private street has attached sidewalks on both sides, which will have, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, the private drive will have a public access easement on those sidewalks so that their public can come and go through there.
Okay. Council, any questions for the applicant?
Mr. Mayor. This won't weigh in on weigh my decision one way or the other, just more out of curiosity. Are the townhouses, are they going to be rented or sold? Do you know what the plan is?
Mr. Mayor, Councilmember Halliburton, they will be on fee simple lots right now. The plan is just to build them as single family. They may be purchased by an investor that could be rented out. They may be purchased by individual owners. Kind of up in the air, really, whoever comes to the table first, I think.
Yeah, great. And is it currently owned by the church? Or
It is, yes.
Okay, wonderful, great.
All righty. Councilmember Stead?
Oh, I was just gonna make a motion.
Oh, I think we still have,
Oh,
but
yeah.
still,
like carrying time.
yeah, we got a few more steps. All right. Thank you, Mr. Simple. I ask if the representative of the neighborhood association is here. I don't think they are. Okay. Open to the public for testimony. Anybody in here would like to testify on this development? Anybody online? Nope. Okay. Any additional comments or questions for Sabrina? Nope. Okay. Well, at this point, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
Council President, I move that SUB 23-61 preliminary plat for a residential subdivision comprised of 19 buildable and 6 common lots located at 7777 West Fairview Avenue on 2.1 acres on a C2D general commercial with design review will be approved.
Second.
Any comments?
Council President,
Councilmember Stead.
I wanted to commend the staff and also the applicant for his compliance, but I think there's some really great conditions built into this project. I love the detached 5-foot sidewalk with an 8-foot wide landscape planter, 56 new trees. You're not removing any of the existing trees. Boise loves that. And then I do also agree with the staff report that this will create a more gradual transition between the denser multifamily housing that's behind it. So I appreciate this project and I'm looking forward to seeing it come to fruition.
Mr. Mayor.
Yep, Councilmember.
Just a couple comments. This is an absolutely perfect infill opportunity in an area that needs housing. It's creative, that the church is doing this and figuring out a way to put more housing on the market, potentially supporting the church as well. And this is the kind of stuff that we like to see. And it's kind of outside the box thinking that gets more people and more houses in Boise. I do want to commend you, Ben, and your organization as well. I remember when we first started coming into council, we would make a lot of requests for trees, we'd make a lot of requests for pathways, and I think you were one of the first people who really jumped on board with being proactive about those. And so, even in the application today, we didn't have to ask you what kind of trees you're going to put in. Are you going to do a tree mitigation plan? We didn't have to ask you about is there going to be a pathway that can connect to this other side? You're doing all those things up front. I want to thank you for that. I'd ask you to keep doing those things, encourage other developers to do it as well, and encourage other people to find these creative opportunities to get more housing in areas that are really, really smart for Boise, and thank the church as well.
All right. Well, I've been waiting to say this. Yes, in God's backyard. I live not too far from this. We just moved. We were about 3 blocks from this. Now we're maybe 4 or 5. But my kids, yesterday, my daughter, we were riding in the car and she said how sad she was that we were maybe a half mile further from Chuck E. Cheese than we were. And I just think of all the kids that are going to live right across the street from Pojo's that are going to be very happy about that. And a lot of parents that will be annoyed, but they'll get a great house in a great neighborhood. So, without any further comments or deliberation, Councilmember Clerk, will you call the roll?
Nash,
Yes.
Stead,
Yes.
Willis,
Yes.
Corliss,
Yes.
Halliburton.
Yes.
Morales.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
With that, folks, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Council President, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll. Or
Nash,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned.